everybody. Welcome to the Artists Alley Aftermath podcast for Faith and Fandom for the Captain's Comics Expo 2025. As coming to kind of reflect, review, and rewind on, I think is my fourth or fifth trip to the Low Country's biggest shindig of geek culture. Oh, still kind of catching my breath. It's the Monday after the show, and did my 9 hours of work, and already recorded 2 other podcasts for the day. So it's been a day. It's not a bad day, but it's been one. But yeah, made my return to Charleston / Mount Pleasant this year, and honestly, it was easier than it could have been to get there. Because the past 2 years at least, instead of getting to set up on Friday and go down early, I've had to leave at like 4 a.m. and go and set up on Saturday, because I end up DJing for random events, and then I almost still had to do it or drive super late, because my Dungeons and Dragons party was going to have to reschedule, and only got to go early because we had snow last week. And so it all worked out. But, Friday I worked some at the college, and then came to my house and packed up and headed on down to Charleston. Made a quick stop at Buc-ee's for things I didn't need, but whatever. And I made my way down there. And overall, I mean, I love doing this show. I love the opportunities. I really got started doing this show after officiating Michael Watkins' wedding and meeting Michael Campbell, who runs the show. We were sitting together at the wedding reception, and we just kind of talked, and I decided to do the show right after that, and made some friends there and some people I look forward to seeing each year. And so it's going to consistently be a show I choose to do as long as I have the opportunity. But yeah, drove down on Friday, got there, checked into my hotel, which is right almost in the same parking lot. It's literally like 2 connecting parking lots, so it's pretty convenient. And checked in just to make sure my room wasn't on fire, and then went and sat up. Same spot I've been for the last 3 years, which is nice and convenient in a lot of ways. Facing the stage is convenient until you get to Sunday for the cosplay parade and showcase, and then literally for the last hour of the show, your booth is invisible and no one can see you because the people are lined up for the cosplay thing. But it's somebody's got to be there, so it's cool. But I sat up, talked to some friends, saw like John Harrison, who's one of my favorite painters, as I was going in, past like Michael Watkins as he was setting up, into the hotel that night. Set some haze, the usual setup stuff. I will say this, it is dramatically harder to set up for a 6-foot space than an 8-foot or a 10-foot space. The previous week when I was at the CCYC conference, I had at least an 8-foot table and extra space beyond the table, and I had more display space than I didn't technically needed, and I loved it. And this was like, okay, you got to remember how to fit everything you're doing in a 6-foot space, which is currently, as of now, I have stopped doing candles solely because it makes it harder to do everything else in the space that I need to do it in and display it well. So I would rather have more space to be able to display stickers and still have a little room for my face to be visible than to have candles. So it's kind of currently where it's at. But I also ran out of wax, and I was only able to do candles affordably because I got them wholesale from some lady who shut down a wedding venue. But yeah. So Friday night setup was fine. I did my setup, went and grabbed some Wendy's, and sat in my hotel room and watched One Piece and sketched. And it was about as chill as I needed it to be because it had been a long week. Kicked off the show pretty early, and I will say this, the breakfast at the Comfort Inn and Suites, which is right across the parking lot, absolutely slapped. It's your standard hotel breakfast, but man, they had it about as good as you could possibly get it. And I was grateful and gave the Lord much praise for just a solid breakfast in that capacity. When the show kicked off, within the first 30 minutes of the show, Alton, who's a dude who I see for the past few years, we usually have some really deep conversations. And he's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to this show. Literally just to have conversations with this dude. I think we've messaged occasionally, but like he genuinely is one of the reasons I'll keep coming back. And so when he showed up, the first thing he did is like, all right, we need to talk about Doctor Who. And we talked for at least an hour, to the point where his friends were like, please leave this table. But we talked about Doctor Who, and somewhere throughout the weekend, we talked about the Penguin. We talked about Delicious in Dungeon. And we talked about a lot of different pop culture things. And we just had good conversations. He got some sketches. I gave him and his friends the Pokemon card and some friendship bracelets. And he got the poetry book as well. And so that was just our Saturday interactions. We interacted a few times on Saturday. The Turner family is another ridiculously large source of encouragement for me there. And I just really appreciate them, and all in their various forms and facets. Yeah, just really grateful for them. Mr. Turner came up to me at some point really deep into Saturday to say that he was sorry that he hadn't been by, and I could tell he's had a weekend already halfway through Saturday. And the one thing he did tell me is that he had lost his dad this past year, and he said that some of the stuff in the podcast and the books and stuff helped him get through it. And I've heard that from a few people just in various and dealing with parental loss, that was a blessing and encouragement. And I'm always grateful for that, because I know when you're losing someone you love, it's really hard to kind of find your footing, and it can be a big help. And in fact, Tim Showers, who's an artist there, had just lost his, I want to say his mother, and had the funeral 2 days before this show, and still showed up this weekend. And I was grateful he showed up, because it's a lot better than sitting alone in your isolation. But I'm grateful that the stuff can happen. And he said that Mr. Turner also said that he thought he got a lot from the books, but he said he gets a lot, maybe more and different from the podcasts. And for me, the longest time, the podcasts were just like, why am I doing this? Who's listening to these things? And sometimes they were just a vent, because I didn't have other people to actually care about these things. And I know it's done different things and it goes in different places, but I'm incredibly grateful when it can be encouragement and helpful to people. So that's a big deal. The Simpson family came by. Jordan and Christine Simpson, who are also just one of those families and couples who have been cool and supportive for years and years for Faith and Fandom. And I enjoy watching how they grow and live their lives and interact and stuff. So just they're a blessing. And they came by and got sketches and stickers and friendship bracelets, and they had another family with them, and was able to give the kid that was with them a stuffed Snorlax, and I thought it was cool, just because I had some extra like nerdy gear that had acquired in my possession lately, some extra Pokemon stuff I didn't need, like a stuffed Snorlax, some action figures, and like 7 Tears of the Kingdom posters that I'd bought from GameStop, because all of GameStop's stuff in certain areas was on 90% clearance. So I was getting like Zelda posters for, 50 cents. So I bought them all. And every time somebody was in a Zelda cosplay, I just gave them posters, because that's what you do. But one of the things that Jordan had told me, Mr. Simpson, that because he always buys my sketches, and he had told me that it encouraged him to sketch himself, because he'd been watching me sketch over the last year and some change, year and a half, and improving in the process, but also not being afraid to put out my sketches when they weren't masterpieces, and that he was encouraged to sketch himself. He also mentioned that he appreciated me just being authentic when it came to being geeky in adult venues, like the fact that I was preaching on stage with a Snorlax cup, wearing a hoodie from Quiet Mountain Apparel with like nerdy references and things like that. And again, y'all, just being yourself and being authentic can encourage people to let them be themselves and be authentic. And it can be really isolating to be yourself in a room full of people you think don't see you, even when you're trying to fit in. So I encourage you, keep being yourself, because you're probably helping other people do the thing. I saw some kid walking around with the same foam master sword that I have from Legend of Zelda. So I took a break from my booth and I ran over to him and said, "Hey kid, would you like a Tears of the Kingdom poster?" And this kid looked at me straight faced without a blink and said, "Golly gee willikers, mister, I sure would." Now, was this kid trolling me? Probably. But it was hilarious. And I thought it was, to actually hear a child say, "Golly gee willikers, mister," like, cracked me up. Yeah. And then Lynn / Jess, Miss Turner, came by and checked on me and brought me a solid mountain of snacks, which I greatly appreciated, because I'd been living on gummy worms all day, and boba, and just was a rock star of just being encouragement. And honestly, like, the people there are why I go there, hands down. No disputes or distinctions. Now I'm going to be a little more discreet with this next thing I'm going to say, and I'll probably be a little bit more clear in a post with our Patreon supporters, because I do firmly believe in the thing where the Bible teaches us about not letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing when you're blessing people. And I don't want this to be like those people who do TikTok saying, "Hey, look what I did, and that's awesome." I don't want this to be that. So here's what I'm going to tell you, and as discreetly as possible in this framing. Due to the generosity of our Patreon supporters, we collectively, and I'll say we collectively as our Patreon supporters and Faith and Fandom family in general, were able to meet a real need in the life of one of our vendors that was at this show. A vendor shared a need that they had, and it was a real enough need, and I was able to help because of the way y'all help. So when I get to the end and I'm reading out our Patreon supporters, y'all literally help not just what I do at a booth, but other people's lives. So y'all do that. So thank you. Then I did my obligatory walk across the bridge there at that goes between Mount Pleasant and Charleston, not Charles. And this is the first year in at least 3 years that I did this by myself. Normally, for the last 3 years, I've had one of my children with me, and I had the blessing of doing a different kid every year for the last 3 years. And all of my kids have lives and crap going on. And it's been a long while since I had a partner with Faith and Fandom to travel with. And so I went by myself. And I was sad. I was very actually sad Friday morning, sitting at my office doing my graphic design job. And I was straight up pouting over being alone this weekend. And I get lonely. I do. And I'm not always great when I'm alone. See, like, one of the main reasons I bring people with me, even if they're not like crazy helpful, I just like to, have people. And there's not always guarantee that even though you're surrounded by people at a con, you're going to have people to talk to, which is another reason why I sketch a lot. Because it makes me feel like I'm not just like stewing in my own anxieties. But I went and walked the bridge and dealt with my feelings about a lot of things. I had a lot of stuff kind of pent up and in me, and stuff I hadn't processed. And so I walked the bridge and listened to 2 moderately emo Christian rap albums, or close to Christian rap albums. I listened to NF's last album, I think was called Hope. It was the one where he's like in the middle of a lake or something, wearing a white hoodie. And then I listened to Neverland 2 by Andy Mineo, and the song Happy by NF and the song Nobody's Coming by Andy Mineo absolutely leveled me, but they always do. But they hit really hard this time. So I took my time. I walked the bridge. Shimmied out my feelings. And one just positive note. I've been doing better in terms of diet. Probably not so much exercise, just because there's only so many hours a day and I work 43 jobs. But I've been doing better in diet and food intake, and I'm in better shape than I was a year ago. And one of the main reasons I know that is because last year I tried to walk the bridge with Rosa, my oldest, and I had to stop a lot on the bridge, like to rest because I was hurting or out of breath or whatever else. I just wasn't killing it last year. This year I didn't have to stop. Like, I stopped to take some photos or to just bask in the beauty of things, but like, I didn't have to stop. I physically was strong enough to make it, and that felt really great. And I texted Rosa when I was coming back across the bridge, and I was like, you want to know how I'm better shape? And I was like, I made it across the bridge without having to stop. She just gave me the current teenage answer, period, with like 4 D's at the end. So that was good. While I was walking across the bridge, I was able to take some photos of a really cute couple doing poses at sunset. on the bridge, and that was nice. And yeah, made it back to my room and kind of dried off, changed clothes, whatever. Went to Trader Joe's to kind of like finish off the day. Got some water. Had some cookies that, from my goodie bag earlier, and got some mochi, the ice cream kind, which I got different mochi on Sunday morning, but I'll get there in a second. I went back and watched One Piece and sketched and took a hot bath and kind of chilled. It was nice. Got up Sunday morning, did the whole packing thing, dealt with some church-related drama from a distance as much as I could. In fact, that took a lot more time than it needed to, and I ended up rushing out the door because I was dealing with that. But again, it's part of the rodeo. And the lady, there's an elderly lady who was stocking the Continental Breakfast Bar at the hotel. And she's like, "You going to that Comic-Con?" I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." She's like, "I love Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's been around since before I was born. And she's always been there for me. I always wanted to be Wonder Woman." And she just walked away. And I was like, "Hold on, for real?" Because this lady was, old. Not in an offensive way, just like she was old. And I looked, and sure enough, Wonder Woman's been around since 1941. And I knew it was a long time, but like, this lady had literally grown up with Wonder Woman in her whole life. I know I have with Batman and Wonder Woman, Superman, but like, to think someone that age has had these heroes their whole life, I think that's pretty great. Before the show got started, I went to go pick up a t-shirt that I had bought from the con. So they did a DuckTales vibe to it, and I wanted to make sure I got a shirt. And Lynn had some mochi, like fresh mochi, and her mom had made me first of all, let's go back to the mochi. I'd never had mochi that wasn't attached to ice cream. And it was banging. I'm talking, I love the texture. It was sweet. I could eat that junk all day, probably die from it. But it was wonderful. Her mom brought me French pressed coffee to my booth. French pressed coffee. It was strong. It was rich. It was deep. Loved every second of it. And I was like, I'm living the high life with like some mochi and some coffee. And while I didn't have people at my booth sitting with me, I did have people that were there at the event that cared, and that makes a lot of difference. Alton came back pretty much first thing Sunday morning, and he pulled out my poetry book, and he had bookmarks marking several spots. He's like, "We need to talk about this." And we talked about my poetry book. My man had like quotes outlined and underlined. He's like, "Let's talk about this line. Let's talk about this line." He says, "Overall, the feeling of this whole book is loneliness with a glimpse of hope." And I'm just listening to his analysis of it, and I was like, mm-hmm. And he was pointing out lines that were in there that I forgot were in there. But yeah, it was neat to actually, know that he literally got the book on Friday or Saturday, read it through it all. It's not a long book. You can read it in a sitting pretty easily. But he got the book on a Saturday, read it, and came back with notes on Sunday. And then he also brought me like a Marvel sticker book, and he said it might be the oldest thing that he's had his whole life. And he wanted me to have it, and he brought some other comics, and it was just a blessing. And that's when we we discussed about the Penguin and some different stuff, and it was a good time. He was real big encouragement with that. Always good to see him. Let's see. There was a few Zelda cosplayers that came by, and so I saw one dressed as Zelda, so I gave her... No, one was dressed as Link, so I gave her a Tears of the Kingdom poster. Then I saw that the other person with them was dressed as Ganondorf, so I gave her a Tears of the Kingdom poster. And she said they got a Midna coming later, so I was like, I gave them another Tears of the Kingdom poster. So it was just pulling these things out of nowhere. It was pretty funny to watch, but it was nice to be able to be a blessing. A neat thing on Friday, there was a Jeff the Shark cosplayer from Marvel Rivals. I know Jeff the Shark's not just from Marvel Rivals, but this cosplayer specifically was from Marvel Rivals. And this is one of the things I consistently say, that one of the most fun things with cosplay for me lately is when cosplayers have interactive gifts. Like, when I was doing my Senshi cosplay, I had like granola bars. When people would comment or whatever, I'd give them food. The Great Fairy at GalaxyCon would give little stickers and hearts, that type of thing. This Jeff the Shark, if you took a photo with them, gave you a healing bubble sticker. And I thought that was amazing. It was pretty cool. And I ran out of a few stickers, which was nice. It was pretty cool. I met a family named the Campbell family, and they spent a good amount of time at the booth, just kind of talking and going over things. And it was really, just neat to have a conversation with them and see how interactive they were, and, just be able to connect with them. And Lynn gave me a postcard from Mulan, which was super dope, and it was just a big blessing and encouragement. And I'll just say this: when you get to be part of people's journeys and they let you know about that impact, it's a big blessing. It really is. In terms of actual sales and things like that, this was not a good show for me at all, and that's fine. Again, I'm here for the people, and God has provided for me to be able to do this in unique ways that kind of take a lot of the pressure off of it. But I think, and I'm stabbing at the wind here right now, I know just in credit card sales, I think there was like $40 for the whole weekend. And the maybe like $40, and so like I would say pretty confidently maybe $75 for the whole weekend. Now, a $75 or $125 table, 2 nights in a hotel, gas. This is not like a financial win, but legitimately God's blessed in a lot of ways. And in fact, like last weekend doing that youth ministry conference, literally just how well things went with that helped provide for this. But again, God's provided in unique ways, and we were able to actually bless other people this weekend because of how much God's blessed us in terms of providing for Faith and Fandom in a lot of ways. But like, I think it was just weird to me that there wasn't more response. Like, the people that already knew me were down for the cause. And like, meeting like the Campbell family was one new family that really connected with and clicked with. But like past that, it was kind of quiet in terms of response. And again, every show is different, every group is different, but grateful for how God provides when he provides. And there's also like a weird vibe for the whole weekend. Even talking to Mr. Turner, I know that things were kind of heavy on his end. I don't know details. I just know that he was having a struggle. And, that's one of the things I'll also really kind of add is that you legitimately never know what people are dealing with behind the scenes and in between the shows. So be super nice and super kind, because people be struggling. Yeah. Be kind, because I came out of the weekend. I had stuff that I was dealing with. but I know that I wasn't the only person there dealing with things. So make sure you be kind where you can. But yeah, I know there's probably more, but that's about the majority of what I'm thinking of. I'm grateful for Alton. I'm grateful for the Turner family. I'm grateful for the chance to be in people's lives, for the Simpsons and the folks that were there and encouraging, and for all the people I got to meet along the way. Yeah, I feel like if I'm just estimating, like outside of the Turner family and Alton, I feel like maybe 4 books went, which isn't a lot in terms of books going out the door, and maybe 1 T-shirt. Lots of stickers, lots of sketches, but it's just like, huh. But again, I know I was there. I know what I was there for. And it's the people that I get to invest in and be a part of that make it worth it. And just the interactions alone with the people that I've got to develop relationships are absolutely worth it. I have a 2-week break for cons, and then I will be heading next to Wilkesboro Comic-Con, starting on Wilkesboro Comic-Con on March 8th in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and then I will be hightailing it directly out of that con to drive to Virginia to see John Foreman play, because I have horrible life choices. And then try and drive back to church for Sunday morning, probably to preach. But yeah, that's totally happening. And then March 14th or 15th, I will be at Power Comic-Con in Florence. And then March 27th through the 30th, I believe I will be at GalaxyCon Richmond. And I am approved for Geek Church and the discussion panel. So good things all around there. And I'm hoping that through the course of March that I'm going to kind of get a firm first draft down for book 10. I've got like 4 chunks of it that need to be kind of written on a little bit more. And I've got a guest chapter on Lord of the Rings that I'm expecting. But yeah, I'll keep y'all posted. Before I bounce, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters, because literally y'all bless my world and other people's worlds in the same process, whether you know it or not. Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin, Michelle Stewart, Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, who I think I'm going to see at Florence, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, and Adam Davis. Thank you all for being the blessings that you are. If you are Patreon supporters, you'll see another message in our Patreon thingy in the near future. But I just want to say thank y'all for being all the support that you are. And I hope that y'all have a great day.